Major areas probably impacted more, apart from Sydney, to a lesser extent Melbourne, but Canberra, because it's in a valley, and the fact that the fires were right along the whole coastline and our prevailing wind was from that direction, we had a great impact on smoke, to the point where I think for a period of weeks that we had some of the most toxic air readings in the world.
Canberra is a little similar to Denver in that it exists in a bowl surrounded by mountains. And because of these fires causing their own weather patterns, they essentially created a pot filled with smoke with a lid on top because of cold air. And because there was no way for that lid to be removed because of these weather patterns, the smoke poured into Canberra and stayed for weeks on end. Families at the embassy reported having haze as if they had burned something on the stove. You could shine a flashlight through your house and see the haze throughout the buildings. Several layers down in our plan was the potential for us to have to receive evacuees from some of the outer suburbs in Canberra. Again, keeping with the direction from the ambassador and the Emergency Action Committee that everyone was to be treated equally, we offered up the embassy as a safe place to go. The Australian government has developed several hardened structures throughout neighborhoods that they can direct evacuees to, but we always want to be able to support our employees saying, if you feel more comfortable coming here with your families, we will receive you. Gave positive guidance to the entire community in multiple different forms through briefings and digital formats, encouraging them to come to the mission if they felt necessary.
There were a host of apps available on smartphones and iPads to include something called Fires Near Me, which was as near to real-time tracking app as we could get, updating the status of the fires, what level of warning they were at, whether they were under control, and they would even geotag the perimeters of the fires to show generally where they were impacting, if major roads were shut down, etc.
We had a large number of fires, including an area where the ambassador and his family were due to go for a holiday down in Jervis Bay region. The area was impacted by the fires both north and south of there, and one of the main logistical issues with the area the ambassador was going to was the access to and from that area. There was only 3 major roads into Jervis Bay, and in particular to Holmes, which was only one road in and out. The Regional Security Office worked closely with the ambassador's protective detail provided by the Australian Federal Police, statistics and fire modelling of what was happening around the area to ensure that the ambassador and his family remained safe, and they had the opportunity to leave that location should it be determined that the conditions were no longer safe. The ambassador managed to get through most of his holiday period. It was cut short when it was deemed that it was the fires were getting too close, and that there was a chance the roads accessing the area would be closed down. So for his safety and that of his protective detail, it was advised that the RSA worked with the police for him to leave and return to the embassy. The first major fire was that Beard fire. Immediately impacted on the operations of the Canberra airport to the point where the airport was closed down, and therefore removed that sort of departure route should it be required. The fires were starting to impact on suburbs where some embassy community members may have been located.
On the day that the Beard fire took off and was out of control, I was serving as the commander of the mobile response team. We pre-positioned out towards the fire because we have the General Services warehouse, our storage warehouse, out in that area with several of our staff. Our objectives were to get an idea of what the situation was on the ground, to get eyes on the fire from distance to see how firefighting efforts were going, and also to be prepared to evacuate those staff from the warehouse if necessary. Eventually the fire became so out of control, flames were leaping so high that we had to remove the warehouse staff, as well as some critical supplies we have stored out there, some medical supplies and emergency communications gear, with the idea that that warehouse may be overrun and burned to the ground. It really hit home for me that day, looking at the Beard fire. We were positioned across the creek about 800 meters away using binoculars and spotting scopes to view firefighting activities. And I'll never forget looking at this hillside with 30 feet of flames cresting over the top of it, and then seeing a mob of kangaroos skipping down through my binoculars down the hillside. It's something that one will be there for a while.
The Aurora Valley fire up in the Namadgi National Park. The fire was in a very remote area, and that location is steep and very difficult to access by fire services. I'm a member of the New South Wales Rural Fire Service as a volunteer. It's the largest volunteer fire service in the world, some 71,000 members. I went into that fireground second day into an area, and we went in late at night. It was quite clear at that stage that we weren't able to have any impact in able to prevent the spread of the fire, particularly at night. We went into a bit of a recovery mode, and unfortunately one of our trucks was taken out by a tree, and we had a number of firefighters injured in that fire. We had to rescue them and be able to withdraw to a safe area. Fortunately for the ACT community, we had an unexpected change of wind, which moved the direction of the fire away from suburbs of Canberra, but it did move in the direction of where other members of the embassy community were. One of the executive chauffeurs' families lived in that area which is going to be impacted by the fires. The regional security officer was able to send some members down there to assist his family in preparation of their property, because unfortunately he was away on driving duties for the ambassador in another state and was unable to get back to assist. I received a call from the RSO at the time saying that there's been a crash of an aerial asset, which I was aware of. Information was suggesting that while it was a Canadian operated aircraft, that the crew members were US citizens. We did establish, unfortunately, that the 3 deceased were US citizens, and we were able to coordinate once again through the New South Wales Rural Fire Service and the Regional Security Office out of the Consulate in Sydney to send representatives down to the accident site and worked with disaster victim identification and recovery of the deceased. The smoke had a large impact on the embassy community, because not only were you not safe in your workplace, but also impacted you at your home and of course your greater family. Together with obviously the normal impact of the smoke, it was the peak of the holiday season. Children were on school holidays, and similar to what's happening with the COVID-19 restrictions, people were isolated within their homes, and even their home inside the premises was the air quality was unsafe. On top of that, we had members that were authorised departure, and it was internal departure, which was unusual, as in people could leave the ACT or New South Wales to an area that was deemed safe in Australia, and the area identified was Brisbane in Queensland, where people could evacuate with their families. Being a volunteer firefighter and working on the fire grounds, it was quite disturbing at times. There was times at night, particularly in the fire in Namadgi Park, where you were far enough away from the trucks to remove that noise, that you could hear the terrifying screams of animals dying in the fire. Getting back to the volunteer fire services and the full-time fire services, while everybody expects to work on a fire ground, because the fires started in October and burned right through to February, it's a 5-month period. You get to some of the smaller communities where they don't have a large fire service, 11 people with 2 trucks, and they had been going non-stop for 2 weeks. By the time we got relief crews down there, they were exhausted. And saying that, the community as a whole, whether it be the communities impacted by fire or those not impacted by fire, was amazing. At our local fire shed, we'd get a call and we'd go down there, and there'd be volunteers would turn up with donated water and food and all various other things to help out the volunteer firefighters. That was a morale booster to see that everybody in the community was involved.